Before we get in the video, could everyone please subscribe to my HOA Karen Tales channel? Thank you so much. You ever had someone take something that's yours and act like you're the problem? That's what happened when Karen turned my barn into her personal country club. But let me tell you, she didn't see the twist coming. It all started on an ordinary Friday evening. I had just pulled into my driveway, exhausted from a long work week, looking forward to a quiet weekend. But something was off. There were too many cars parked along my property. I wasn't expecting company, and there sure as hell shouldn't have been a full-blown traffic jam outside my place. Then I heard it. The heavy thump of bass, the high-pitched laughter, the unmistakable clinking of champagne glasses. Confused, I turned toward my barn, the one I inherited from my grandfather, the one I'd been slowly fixing up, hoping to restore it to its former glory, the one that by every legal definition belonged solely to me. Yet as I approached, the scene before me looked like something out of a high-end event magazine. Fairy lights draped from the rafters. A full DJ setup blared music that was at least 2 decades past my preferred playlist. A makeshift bar had been installed near the old tool bench, manned by a bartender who looked way too professional for a neighborhood gathering. The guests, dressed in formal attire, sipped wine, twirled around on a makeshift dance floor, and toasted to something I apparently wasn't invited to. That's when I spotted her, Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of our neighborhood HOA, standing at the center of it all. If you've ever had the misfortune of dealing with an HOA Karen, you already know the type. Always involved in other people's business, always enforcing rules that don't apply to her, and always convinced that her opinion is law. Karen ran the HOA like a dictatorship. Every minor decision had to go through her, and she had a knack for making life miserable for anyone who didn't bow to her authority. And right now, she was treating my barn like it was her personal ballroom. Ah, there he is. Karen's voice rang out as she noticed me standing at the entrance. She beamed as if I were a special guest at an event I never agreed to host. I was wondering when you'd show up. What is this? I asked, barely keeping my voice steady. She laughed like I had just made a silly joke. Oh, don't be so dramatic. Your barn was just sitting there collecting dust. I thought it could use a little love. Doesn't it look so much better like this? She gestured around as if expecting applause. I stared at her, waiting for some kind of punchline. You did this without asking me. She waved a dismissive hand. Oh, details, details. Everyone loves it, and honestly, we needed a better event space for our neighborhood gatherings. It was a community decision. I glanced around. The so-called community consisted entirely of HOA members. The same people who spent the last year trying to find loopholes to control my property, despite the fact that my land was not under their jurisdiction. That's funny, I said, my voice tight, because I don't recall being part of this decision. Karen's smile faltered just slightly. Well, technically you weren't against it, were you? I took a deep breath because I didn't know it was happening. Exactly. You weren't burdened with the details. She gave me a patronizing pat on the arm. You're welcome, by the way. I clenched my jaw, my fists tightening at my sides. Karen, you can't just take my barn. She sighed dramatically, rolling her eyes. Oh, please, it's still your barn. We just improved it. Besides, she gestured toward the crowd. We're already in the middle of a wonderful evening. It'd be so rude to make a scene now. I glanced around again. Some of the elites were watching our exchange, clearly curious about how I'd react. Others were too busy enjoying their overpriced cocktails to care. I exhaled slowly. You know what? You're right. Karen blinked. Wait, I am? I smiled. Yeah, it'd be rude to make a scene. I looked around and gave a small nod. Enjoy your night. With that, I turned on my heel and walked away. Karen looked momentarily surprised at how easily I backed down, but then she simply shrugged and turned back to her guests, basking in her stolen glory. She had no idea what was coming. I had a plan because if Karen thought she could steal my barn for a party, she was about to find out what happened when you mess with the actual owner. I let the night play out, letting them get comfortable, letting them believe they'd won. Then, at exactly midnight, I made my move. Karen was in her element. She strolled around the barn like a queen surveying her kingdom, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around a glass of expensive champagne, probably purchased with the HOA's budget. She was glowing with satisfaction, soaking in the praise from her guests as if she had just unveiled a world-class event space. And in her mind, she had. "This is just spectacular, Karen," one of the HOA board members gushed, sipping on his overpriced cocktail. "I can't believe this used to be an old barn." Karen beamed. "I know. Can you believe the waste just sitting here unused? But now, it's a place for the community to come together." I stood off to the side, watching and listening. Every word out of her mouth was another nail in her coffin, because what she didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that I wasn't upset. No, I was patient. This wasn't over. A woman in a sequin dress, one of Karen's most loyal cronies, approached me with a smug smile. "You must be so relieved that Karen stepped in. She's done wonders with this place." "Oh, absolutely," I said smoothly, forcing a polite nod. "She really took initiative." The woman tittered, clearly mistaking my agreement for genuine gratitude. "Exactly. And I'm sure you didn't have any big plans for this dusty old thing, right?" She waved a hand dismissively at the barn. "Nope," I said, taking a sip of my drink. "No big plans at all." That was a lie. I had very big plans, but for now, I needed them to feel comfortable, to get just drunk enough, just relaxed enough, just oblivious enough, to walk straight into their own downfall. Karen clinked her glass with a spoon, gathering everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her voice dripping with self-importance, "I just want to say how grateful I am to all of you for supporting this vision. I truly believe we're making our neighborhood better, classier, more elegant." She placed a hand on her chest dramatically. "And isn't that what we all want?" A chorus of murmured agreements followed, glasses lifted in toasts. Then Karen turned toward me, and of course she continued, "We must give a big thank you to our dear neighbor who so graciously allowed us to repurpose this space." Applause. I forced a smile. "Oh, it's my pleasure, Karen." She didn't notice the sharp edge to my tone. She was too busy basking in her own delusions. I let the night play on. More drinks were poured, more compliments were showered upon Karen. She practically floated through the barn, eating up the admiration. At one point, she even started giving tours like she was a real estate agent showcasing an estate she owned. "And over here," she said, gesturing grandly to the tool bench turn bar, "we completely transformed the space. It was nothing but a dusty workbench before, a waste, really." A woman gasped in mock horror. "A workbench? Oh no, that's simply unacceptable." Karen nodded solemnly. "Exactly my point. Some people just don't see the potential in things." I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. She truly had no idea. Then came the real kicker. Karen, emboldened by a few too many glasses of champagne, turned to me and said, "Honestly, you should just let us use this for all of our future events. Think about it. No point in letting it go back to being an eyesore." My grip on my drink tightened, but my expression remained neutral. "You know what, Karen? You're right. There's no point in letting it go to waste." She beamed. "Oh, I knew you'd come around." I nodded. "Yep, and you know what else?" Karen cocked her head. "What?" I took a slow sip of my drink, letting the moment stretch just long enough. Then I smiled. "Enjoy the party." She barely registered my words. She was already moving on to another group, already celebrating her supposed victory. She had no idea that every second that passed was another step closer to her downfall, because the clock was ticking. Midnight was coming, and Karen was about to lose everything. Midnight struck. The party was still going strong. Music thumping, guests laughing, drinks flowing. No one had a clue what was about to happen. I took one last look around the barn, making sure everyone was inside. Then, with a slow exhale, I stepped out and locked the doors. It took a few minutes before anyone noticed. The first sign of trouble came when an older gentleman in a navy suit strolled toward the exit, intending to leave. He pushed on the heavy wooden doors. They didn't budge. He frowned and tried again. Nothing. I think this door is stuck," he said, jiggling the handle harder. A woman near the front turned toward him, confused. "What do you mean stuck? I mean, it's not opening." She rolled her eyes and tried it herself. Then her expression changed. Karen, still in the middle of an animated conversation about how the barn was going to be the new event space, barely noticed the murmurs of concern growing at the entrance. Then someone knocked. Boom, boom, boom. Karen turned, eyes narrowing. What is going on? The doors won't open, someone called. She scoffed, marching toward the exit. Oh, please, you just have to. She yanked the handle hard. Nothing. Karen frowned. Then, with more force, she yanked again. The doors barely shifted. Then she realized. I could see it in her eyes the moment it clicked. She spun around, scanning the barn for me. I was outside, standing just beyond the window, sipping my beer with the most satisfied smirk I could muster. Her face turned red. Oh, you got to be kidding me. She stormed to the nearest window and pounded on the glass. Let me out right now. I took a long sip. Something wrong? Karen's eyes narrowed into slits. Unlock the doors. Why? I thought you were enjoying your event space, I said, tilting my head. What's the rush? She clenched her fist. This isn't funny. Oh, I think it's hilarious, I said, stepping closer. You threw a party in my barn without asking. You used my property like it was yours, so you know what? You can keep it all night. Panic set in. A few guests started getting nervous, whispering among themselves. One woman was frantically pressing her phone screen. There's no signal. All right, I had switched off the barn's Wi-Fi earlier. Karen had no idea. Now the realization was settling in. They were trapped. Karen let out a forced, breathy laugh. Oh, come on, don't be ridiculous. Just open the door and we'll talk about this. Talk, I echoed. Like how you talked to me before throwing this party? She scowled. It's not the same thing. Oh, I think it is. Her hands slapped against the window. Listen, you don't want to make this worse. If you don't open this door right now, I swear I will what? Call the police? I grinned. Be my guest, but I'm guessing they won't be too happy when they find out this entire party is illegal. The color drained from her face. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice just enough for her to hear. No permiten trespassing. She swallowed hard. Behind her, the other guests started murmuring nervously. They knew I wasn't bluffing. A man in a too-tight tuxedo pointed at Karen. Wait, did you seriously not get permission for this? Karen waved him off. Oh, please, he's being dramatic. We're just having a party in a barn that isn't ours. Another woman cut in, a blonde woman near the bar. Oh my God, are we trespassing right now? Karen threw up her hands. Calm down. It's fine. He's obviously just trying to. Then from the back, someone yelled, Wait, where's the bathroom? Silence. The reality hit them all at once. They were trapped inside a barn. No signal, no way out, no bathroom. I took another slow sip of my drink, watching the true panic start to unfold. Banging on the doors, a man in a blazer muttered, Oh, this is bad. A woman near the food table gasped. I told you this was a bad idea, Karen. Karen whipped around, hands up. Everyone just relax. He's going to open the doors in a minute, aren't you? She turned back toward me, her expression shifting to forced charm. Right. I leaned against the window frame, considering. Then I shook my head. Nah. The panic exploded. People rushed to the doors, pushing, shoving, screaming. This is insane. Let us out. Karen turned back to me, eyes wild. You can't just lock us in here. I shrugged. Why not? You seem fine locking me out of my own barn. I was making it better. I smirked. And now I'm making it memorable. Someone in the crowd turned toward Karen. So, what's the plan here? Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she had no answer. That's when the first drink spilled. A woman trying to push past a panicked man knocked over a glass of red wine. It shattered on the floor. Someone yelped, slipping on the spill. Chaos. One guy tried breaking a window, but these weren't flimsy little panes. They were reinforced barn windows built to withstand storms. Nothing was getting them out. The night had officially turned. Karen whirled back toward me, eyes blazing. I swear, if you don't let us out, I will have you arrested. I smiled. For what? Locking up my own property. That shut her up. I pulled out my phone and raised it slightly, just enough for her to see. Now here's what's going to happen, I said, voice calm. I'm going to stand right here. I'm going to enjoy my drink, and you're going to explain to all your guests why you decided to break in my property without permission. Karen's jaw tightened. You wouldn't. Oh, I definitely would. She turned back to the crowd, dozens of furious, panicked faces staring her down. I could already see it, the fear setting in, the pressure of losing control. The illusion was shattered. Karen had trapped herself in her own mess, and I had all night to enjoy the show. Inside the barn, the tension had officially snapped. The once lively, elegant gathering had transformed into sheer pandemonium. Karen stood near the door, gripping the handle so hard her knuckles were white, yanking, pulling, slamming, but nothing budged. I had secured everything, reinforced the latches earlier, knowing full well that once she realized she wasn't in control, she'd start flailing like a fish out of water. And flail she did. "Let me out," she shrieked, banging on the door with both fists. Her polished nails clawed at the wood like a cornered animal. But that wasn't even the best part. Her loyalists were turning on her. A man in an expensive navy suit pointed at her, with a drink still clutched in his hand. "Wait, so you really didn't get permission for this?" Of course she didn't. A woman in a green cocktail dress snapped, glaring at Karen. "You think he'd willingly let you take over his barn?" Another man, clearly drunk, wobbled forward, blinking at her. "You said this place was already under control." Karen's head jerked toward him, her face a mix of rage and panic. "It should be," she screamed. A woman gasped near the bar. "So wait, we're trespassing?" Karen whipped back to me, her hair slightly frazzled. "Now you're making a mistake. You don't know who you're messing with." I took another slow sip of my beer and leaned against the window. "You sure about that?" The thing about people like Karen is they crumble the second they lose control, and tonight she had lost everything. Suddenly, a sharp crash rang out. Everyone spun toward the bar. One of the guests had knocked over a full bottle of expensive champagne, which exploded on the floor in a foamy mess. "Oh my God," someone whispered. That was the tipping point. A woman in a blue dress turned to her husband. "We need to get out of here." He nodded, gripping his phone. "No signal. The Wi-Fi is out." "That's because she probably cut it to keep the party exclusive," someone accused, gesturing toward Karen. "Are you seriously blaming me right now?" she screeched. The guests ignored her. They were in full panic mode now. A man near the back was violently shaking a window, trying to force it open. A group near the front pounded on the doors, voices rising in frustration. Someone else tried kicking the emergency exit, only to yelp in pain when it didn't budge. One guy actually picked up a chair, ready to hurl it at the window. "Oh my God, don't!" Karen snapped, eyes wide. "This barn is a historic structure." "Then why the hell did you throw a party in it?" someone screamed back. Karen stiffened, her face twitching with frustration. She had never been spoken to like that before, and now she was losing control in real time. I watched, amused, as her members started tearing into each other. "This is so unprofessional, Karen. You're the president. This is your fault. You told us this was a community space." "Well, how was I supposed to know he'd be such a child about it?" Karen spat, spinning toward the window again. "Karen," I said, shaking my head with mock disappointment. "I'm so hurt. Here, I thought we were all about respecting the community." Her eyes blazed with fury, but then it got worse for her. A guy near the bar gagged loudly. "Oh no," a woman whispered, and then he vomited right on Karen's expensive custom rug, the same one she bragged about earlier for being hand-woven and imported from France. Karen let out a choked scream. "You did not." The guy gagged again. Panic spread like wildfire. "Do not throw up in here," someone shrieked. People started scrambling, pushing, shoving. "Oh God, I need air. I'm going to be sick too." And then, like a comedy sketch gone terribly wrong, another person gagged, then another, until suddenly 3 people were dry heaving near the bar. Chaos. Absolute glorious chaos. And me? I was having the time of my life. Outside the window, I stretched, let out a happy sigh, and pulled out my phone. Click. I took a beautiful photo of Karen's miserable, horrified face. That's when she saw me do it. Her head snapped up. You. I wiggled my fingers at her, waving for the camera. Karen screeched. This was bad for her, really bad. Karen had always been meticulous about her image. The perfect HOA president, the respectable neighborhood figure, the sophisticated woman. Now, she was red-faced, surrounded by angry people, puke on the floor, screaming at a locked door like a lunatic. This was her undoing. "You can't do this to me," she bellowed, slamming her fists on the window. "Oh, I absolutely can," I said, grinning, and I did. The guests, meanwhile, were fully spiraling. "This is a prison," someone wailed. Karen whipped around, her breathing erratic. "Everybody just stay calm." They did not stay calm. Someone tripped. A tray of hors d'oeuvres went flying. Expensive wine splashed across the floor. A woman in heels slipped, caught herself, and started crying. Karen turned back to me, her face filled with hatred. "Let me out." I grinned. "You know, Karen, I think I'll just let this party run a little longer." Then I walked away. Way behind me, I could still hear her furious, blood-curdling scream. This was only the beginning of her downfall. The aftermath of Karen's downfall was nothing short of legendary. By the next morning, the entire neighborhood knew what had happened. The HOA gossip mill had been working overtime, spreading the news like wildfire. People who weren't even at the party were calling each other, texting in group chats, posting on neighborhood forums. By 8 a.m., Karen's name was already a cautionary tale, and by noon, she was finished. The fallout began. The first blow came from the HOA board itself. Linda wasted no time. The moment the police took Karen away, she and a few other board members held an emergency HOA meeting. It was a bloodbath. The once loyal Karen supporters flipped on her instantly. "She lied to us," one board member fumed. "She made us look like idiots," another grumbled. Linda, the new HOA leader, simply crossed her arms. "We need a vote on this effective immediately. Karen is removed as HOA president." The vote was unanimous, and just like that, Karen lost her power. No more harassing people over their lawn colors. No more issuing fines for holiday decorations. No more dictating what people could and couldn't do with their own homes. Karen had ruled the HOA with an iron fist for years, but that night, she lost everything. Her reputation was destroyed. Karen had always cared about one thing above all else: her reputation. She wasn't just an HOA president. She was the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood. The power lunches, the community events, the exclusive wine tastings, all of it was about status. But now she was a joke. And worse, she was caught on video. Oh yes, multiple people recorded her meltdown inside the barn, her screaming at the window, her desperate attempts to keep control the moment she was dragged off by the cops. One neighbor posted the footage online, and not even 24 hours later, it was circulating everywhere. HOA president loses it after illegally taking over a neighbor's property. The comments were brutal. "This is peak HOA Karen. Imagine trespassing and then getting mad when you get caught." She deserved every second of that. By the end of the day, everyone knew Karen wasn't the fearsome, controlling HOA leader anymore. She was just a humiliated, disgraced woman with no power left. The legal nightmare, of course, didn't stop there. The police report had been filed, the trespassing charge was already in motion, and then the real pain began. I had legal documents in hand, and I wasn't done yet. That barn had caused thousands of dollars in damage. I sent the bill straight to the HOA for $1,237 for broken windows, ruined floors, cleaning costs, missing tools, and destroyed property. Every single dollar was accounted for. The HOA board had no choice. They could either pay out of their funds or sue Karen for the damages. And guess what? They chose to sue her. Her house was in trouble. Karen's world was crumbling. No HOA power, no reputation, a pending lawsuit. But the final blow? Her own house. See, Karen had spent years forcing other homeowners to follow strict rules. Yet her own place wasn't even up to code. Now that she was gone, people started filing complaints. Turns out, Karen had multiple violations: an illegal backyard structure, non-approved modifications to her driveway, and fencing that violated HOA policy. All those things she used to get away with. Now the HOA was fining her for the same petty rules she enforced on everyone else. They were now destroying her. By the end of the month, Karen's house was on foreclosure watch. She tried to fight it. She tried to negotiate, but she had no allies left. No one was coming to save her. Meanwhile, I was winning. While Karen was drowning in legal trouble, HOA fines, and public humiliation, I was celebrating. I fixed up my barn better than before, stronger, more secure. And then I turned it into an actual event space, a legal event space. I got permits, approvals, the whole deal, and now people had to pay me to use it. The same HOA members who mocked me at Karen's party were now sending requests to rent it. And every time someone asked, I just smiled and said, "Oh, you want to use my barn? That'll be $5,000 for the night." And the best part? Karen had to watch it happen. She had to sit on her porch, staring at the barn she once tried to steal, knowing she had no power left. The final nail in the coffin. One day, not long after, I walked past her house. She was sitting outside, staring blankly at the neighborhood she once ruled. I stopped, gave her a little nod. She scowled. "What do you want?" I smiled. "Just wanted to see how retirement is treating you." She snapped and slammed the door in my face. I just laughed. Karen had lost everything. And me? I had won, with Karen out of power and my barn officially mine again. It was time for the ultimate power move. The same people who had attended her illegal party were now lining up to rent my barn for a price. The HOA board, now under new leadership thanks to Karen's disgrace, was desperate to fix its image. They needed an event space, and guess what? I had the only one in town. So when Linda, the woman who had ultimately orchestrated Karen's removal, called me, I already knew what she wanted. "Listen," she said, her tone polite but slightly strained. "We're organizing a community event, a proper one, and we were wondering if you'd be willing to rent out your barn." I smiled. "Oh, of course. I'd be happy to help the community." Linda sighed, relieved. "That's great to hear. Now, we'd like to discuss pricing." I cut her off. $5,000 a night. Silence. Excuse me?" "You heard me," I said, leaning back in my chair. "It's an exclusive venue, high demand, fully legal, safe, unlike, last time." Linda coughed. That's quite the price." I grinned. "Oh, I know. But hey, if you don't want it, you can always ask Karen." The silence stretched. Then Linda muttered, "We'll get back to you." 2 hours later, I had a contract in my inbox, with Karen watching from the sidelines. The best part? Karen had to watch it all unfold. The same barn she had once tried to steal was now making me thousands of dollars. The same HOA that had once backed her up was now paying me. And Karen, she was nothing. One afternoon, as I was setting up the barn for its first official HOA-approved event, I noticed Karen standing at the edge of her property. She looked miserable, arms crossed, face tight with frustration. She had lost everything. I pretended not to see her, but as I turned, I couldn't resist. I called out, "Hey, Karen." She flinched. "What?" she muttered, refusing to make eye contact. I smiled. The final crushing blow was coming. "I was thinking." I tapped my chin. "Would you like to rent the barn?" Her head snapped up so fast I thought she might break her neck. Her face turned an impossible shade of red. I kept going, my voice sweet as honey. I know you loved hosting parties here," I said, waving at the barn. "And since it's such a community treasure now, I figured why not?" I shrugged. "Of course, it'll be $5,000 up front, no discounts." She gritted her teeth, her hands curled into fists, and then finally, the words I had been waiting for, a bitter, defeated whisper. "Screw you." I laughed and walked away. And that, my friends, is how you take down an HOA Karen. By letting them dig their own grave, watching them fall, and then making them pay to visit the wreckage. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done? Would you have let Karen off easy? Or would you have made her suffer even more? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And hey, if you like this story, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because trust me, in this HOA, the drama never stops.